Treasurer Wayne Swan says the Coalition is trying to avoid scrutiny by not submitting all its policies to Treasury for costing by today's deadline. The Treasurer joins us now. Wayne Swan, good morning.
Good morning, Fran.
Treasurer Andrew Robb says you're trying to slide into office on the back of a criminal act. What's your response to that?
Fran, their economic credibility lies in tatters. The statements from Mr Robb this morning are farcical. It is just descending into farce. They've got a tax policy which turns out to be a bar graph. That's what they've submitted as their tax policy for the election. Now, let's just deal with this costings issue because...
Let's deal with the leak, why don't we? Do you know any idea who's leaking in your office or your department?
Fran, I can't speculate about the material that was in the newspapers, but what I can say is
does it worry you that there has been a leak?
Fran, the material in the newspapers predated the election, and it was about a policy that the Liberals have released publicly, and that policy appears to have an $800 million hole in it. Now, I don't know why they wouldn't want to submit that to the Treasury and Finance process. I'll tell you what's going on here, Fran. The fact is, their numbers don't add up. They have something like $30 billion of spending commitments. About 10% of that have been submitted to the Treasury Finance process. So what that says to me is that their numbers will not withstand scrutiny. And what this is all about is the Liberals never ever intended to submit their spending commitments to the process. Mr Robb
just like you barely did in 2007 on the last day.
Mr Robb made a commitment to submit their proposals by last Friday. Well, Fran, time's up. 5:30 this afternoon. This is the Liberal Party's Charter of Budget Honesty that was legislated by Peter Costello. These are they are a political party that is running around the country in this election, making all sorts of wild statements about fiscal credibility. Well, here's their chance. The government is going through the process. The government is bringing the budget back to surplus in 3 years early. What all this means is that the Liberal Party is now a huge threat to the surplus. We've already seen the addition to superannuation liabilities of something like $8 billion. $8 billion, a huge burden on the Australian people as we go forward when it comes to what they've done in terms of superannuation. They are out of control.
Treasurer,
and their failure to submit here means that their economic credibility does lie in tatters.
Treasurer, can you forgive voters for being a bit cynical here, because here you are demanding the Coalition put in its costings with a week to go when Labor in 2007 put in the bulk of yours on the last day. Here you are not worrying about a leak from Treasury when the leak from Treasury during the Godwin-Gretsch affair bothered you enormously.
Well, it's a bit rich for them complaining about leaks from Treasury when they were living off a mole in the Treasury for years, trying to destabilise our economy and using leaks from the Treasury to destabilise the bank guarantee which they were opposing. The fact is, Fran, that this is a public policy that was released prior to the election. There is a huge hole in it, and what it tends to indicate is that there are plenty of other blowouts in their spending commitments, and that's why they are refusing to comply with the Charter of Budget Honesty, which the government is complying fully with. So the government is complying with the Charter of Budget Honesty. The Liberals are refusing to comply with the Charter of Budget Honesty. They have $30 billion worth of spending commitments. Only 10% have been submitted to the process. This shows that they've already blown the surplus.
Just explain to people listening, all the voters listening, why the Coalition should hand over its policies to the Treasury Department, given that we have seen a leak from Treasury, why they shouldn't be suspicious it might end up on the front of the newspaper, Fran, why that doesn't matter.
Well, Fran, because through the Charter of Budget Honesty, the policies that they have released publicly are scrutinised, and the Treasury then publishes their assessment of the impact and the cost on the budget. So these are policies that the Liberals have released. They go into a Treasury process for assessment, and the Treasury then assesses their policies and our policies and publishes their impact on the budget. Why is this important? Because this government has done the hard work, done the hard yards to bring the budget back into surplus in 3 years early. The Liberal Party have $30 billion of spending commitments that they're not submitting. They've had huge cost blowouts in their paid parental leave scheme, the education tax refund, and so on. And why this is important is that it will show that the Liberal Party is spending like a drunken sailor and going to blow the surplus.
Well,
that's why they are refusing. That's why they're refusing to comply.
Well, what they're not refusing
to
do is they're so confident they're offering to have an accounting firm cost their policies and then release all of that. Why isn't that good enough?
Because that's just a stitch-up. The fact is that the Treasury and the Department of Finance are the two departments that served the Liberal Party. They served the Liberal Party with great distinction. They are serving this government with great distinction. The fact is, if the Liberal Party has got nothing to hide, then they should submit their proposals for the detailed scrutiny of both the Department of Treasury and the Department of Finance. And then if they claim that their numbers do add up, that will be there for the people of Australia to see before the election. Why are they refusing to do that? I think they're refusing to do that because their numbers simply don't add up, that they will blow a huge hole in the surplus, and that is a very, very big issue in this election. This government has done the hard yards. This government kept this country out of recession. If the Liberals would have had their way, they would have sent Australia into recession. This government is doing the hard yards to put in place fiscal consolidation, to bring the budget back to surplus in 3 years early. Now, all of that is at risk because the Liberal Party have a hidden agenda.
All right,
and they're not going to submit their policies to the appropriate scrutiny.